Hey, Monica, did you know it's now even easier to listen to Round the Hay Bale podcast?
What? Really? How easy?
That's right. All you have to do is say, Alexa, play Round the Hay Bale podcast.
Playing Round the Hay Bale podcast on Apple Music.
Ooh, we fancy. Tune in to Round the Hay Bale every Monday at 9 a.m. Central. Round the Hay Bale is brought to you by... With gardening season in full bloom, Cayce certified organic products are just what your garden needs.
From fertilizing your orchards to feeding your soil, Cayce's calcium-based fertilizer gives your plants the essential minerals they need to thrive.
Applying Cayce to agricultural soils and waters has been proven to increase plant and crop yields while making vegetables and grains healthier and more nutritious.
In addition, Cayce can help restore the nutrient balance in animals when they're fed plants grown using Cayce in both soil and water.
To check out all of Cayce's organic products, visit cayce.com and use our promo code HeyBale for 10% off of your purchase.
Grab a cup of joe and gather round the hay bale with your hosts, Alicia from Country Mama Musings, Cayce from Ormsby Farms, and Monica from Bland's Promised Land Ranch. Now, here they are. Hey, y'all. Hey.
Hey, y'all. Hey, welcome back to Round the Hay Bale. I'm Alicia.
And I'm Monica.
And I'm Cayce. So welcome back to the Hay Bale. So to y'all, today on season 4, Unscripted, we are actually talking about video replay. So we are talking about videos on our channel that went viral, why we think they went viral, and we're going to kind of discuss the content behind them. A couple of the videos we're talking about today is at Bland's Promised Land Ranch. Monica had a hysterical video that, bless her heart, she did get a couple comments for. I understood what she meant, but it's now hit 1.5 million, y'all. 1.5 million. That's like lotto money views. And then Alicia had one about storing bulk flour. That's at 46,000. Both are extremely higher than any of my videos have ever gotten. But I wanted to start, since we are talking about viral videos, I want to talk about the 1.5 million on canning. So Monica in the video, she starts it out and she is playing like xylophone on her canning jars, which I think is very important. When you're testing your canning jars, Alicia, chime in if I know you are going to agree with me on this topic, is
Sure.
that you truly do need to, at least once a year, go and test out the tops of your canning jars, whether you vacuum seal them and they're dehydrated foods or whether they're canned foods, to make sure that they are good and they are still sealed. Alicia, before we bring Monica in to talk about her viral video, did you want to kind of touch on why it's important to test it once a year? Because I believe it's important, I think at least once a year, to go do your little xylophone test.
Absolutely. I think it's important to go through your pantry on a regularly scheduled basis and just look over your canned goods. Make sure that you haven't had any failure in seal. It may have been sealed when you put it away, but something could have happened and now you don't have a good seal on your hard work that you've put up and you don't want to utilize that food. So Monica did have a great video that shows just how easily that can happen. And one thing that I know she will point out is the importance of removing the bands after you can, because one of the things that people don't realize is if you just have a little smidge of food underneath that ring, it can begin to mold and that can creep up and it can compromise your seal, and that's going to introduce bacteria. Monica, tell us all about that video, how you feel about testing your canned goods, and what exactly happened in that video that went so viral.
Okay, so I started out the video with the famous words, "To the naked eye, these two jars look exactly the same." And they actually did look the same on the shelf. Here's the thing. When I was tapping, I had actually heard that you could use a spoon to tap because I normally take my fingers. And so I was like, oh, I'm going to stink and use a spoon to tap on my jars. That's awesome. So I was like, do, 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 do. And I was tapping on all the jars. And I was testing out the jars in my pantry as I typically do. And this particular set of jars was in a box and they were kind of in the back of my pantry, kind of like stacked on top of another set of jars that were not being used, FYI. They were stacked on a box of brand new jars. And so I was, up on the stool tapping my jars, and that's when I heard there was something going on. Now, the reason why I was in there tapping the jars is because my kids were very keen on what this room smells like. And they were like, Mom, something is funky in the schoolroom. The schoolroom closet is where I keep all of my a lot of my canned goods. We call it the extra pantry, or my kids like to refer to it as the apocalypse pantry. It's really basically just a bedroom closet that is now our schoolroom. That's a makeshift pantry area. Okay.
Something funky going on up over there at Bland's Promised Land Ranch.
Let me tell you, the kids were like,
no.
Yeah, well, the kids were like, Mom, the schoolroom smells bad and it's not one of us. So you need to look at something's going on in the jars. And so I was like, God, I got this. So I started tapping on the jars. And that's when I was like, funk, funk. And I was like, oh, something is rotten. And so I grabbed the jar and immediately I was like, oh my gosh, yeah, this is rotten and nasty. But again, I am looking at the box of jars. I am looking at the box of all my stuff and I'm smelling it first. But again, I had not put the rings on them. So I knew that if it was going to be a bad seal, it was going to pop off and the mold could grow. And that's when I realized, this is super important because there are people that are old school. And I've heard it dozens and dozens and dozens of times. Actually, probably at this point, hundreds of times. You don't have to take the ring off. The ring is there. It serves a purpose and you can leave it on and that seal is going to pop regardless. And yes, a lot of the times the seal will pop. But recently, even, I have had several jars that have had the ring off and the seal was still attached to the rim of the jar and the button was popped up. But then I had a couple that were bad and the button was still flat. So to the naked eye, you could not see that jar had a busted seal. But when I pushed on the edge of it, the top of the jar lid, the lid itself came right off. So there's a lot of things to that. And it was super important for me, one, to identify the funky smell, and two, to make sure that my jars are good. Another thing that people thought was really great is that I called it taco meat. And they were like, you're disgusting. Why do you can meat? So that was another big thing people wanted to lay into me about on this viral video. So yeah, I think that's why it went viral.
I want to point out that the person that thought you were strange for canning taco meat was not the vegetarian in this group. I gave you no grief for canning meat.
It was not you.
I want that pointed out. I highly commend you for canning your taco meat because I know your family loves it.
Thank you.
Well,
but I agree. I see it a lot.
I want to also point out that Monica has multiple boys in her family, and that the boys are the ones that noticed that something was smelling in the room.
Yeah.
Because for y'all that follow Bland's Promised Land Ranch, right.
Yeah.
Right.
There's something wrong when the boys tell you something stinky.
It wasn't Monica's one daughter.
This coming from a mother of 4 boys.
Yeah, I think the boys notice it because they're usually in this room playing video games. So when you start playing video games and you smell something funky and it's not you better ask Mom to check her jars in the pantry.
It's not you and it's not your brother.
Yeah. They're like, do you smell like rotten taco meat? it's not me. So, but no, I mean, I think that that was the most of the comments that I got on that video. And the reason why I think it really did went viral is, one, my choice of words in the beginning. It was a poor choice of words, but it really wasn't, because it was exactly what I was thinking at that time. To the naked eye, these two looked very similar. And when I pulled them out and showed you in the very front of the video, first of all, we had a huge amount of bright lights on there. Eric had a massive flashlight. He was shining on it so you could see the colors. But I guess that was the wrong choice, because I had people, hundreds of comments laying into me about how they don't look the same. I must be blind. There were some really great comments. I mean, some of them were just making me laugh. And I have a favorite too I can share with you too. Cayce, did you have anything to add to my viral video commenting?
No, I just wanted to say, because I've watched that canning video, probably the 1.5 million views that you have gotten on that view. But yes, let me just let everybody know, because all of us here on the panel have canned before. We have canned for multiple years. None of us are novice canners. I just want to kind of put that out to our viewers, that none of us are novice canners. Um, when you are canning meat, now I will say that our handy dandy vegetarian on the panel does not can meat, but because of Monica, I have started canning meat and canning my leftovers. We call her the queen of leftovers. But sometimes, even with a good seal, sometimes your taco meat can be two different colors. Okay, y'all, let's be for real on the for reals. Sometimes if you have more grease that is in one taco jar, the color is going to look different from a dry elbow ground beef taco jar that you produce. So when Monica said that, it is because if you are looking at taco meat, sometimes they have a different hint. For our canners out there listening, you can notice there is sometimes a little bit of a color difference. But what she is saying to the naked eye, meaning there is no mold that is growing around the rim of your jar, there's no mold that is growing on the top of your jar. You don't see this white film on the top of your meat, which is a huge indicator, FYI, that there is mold inside of your jar if there is a white topping. So when she is saying that, y'all be kind. Most of the time when we all get these mean comments is from people that have never canned before in their entire life and swear they know everything because they've watched a reel on TikTok that showed how to use, ball canning jar lids, and they swear they are professionals. So y'all be kind, because it truly is true. And I know Alicia is going to agree with me that sometimes
Yeah.
the meat, even though it is sealed properly, looks a different color. Right, Alicia? Don't you agree?
I mean, hey, let's take into consideration, what if you do more than one batch of taco meat and maybe you do use a different kind of chili in your taco seasoning. Some's a red chili, some's a brown chili, and so you can get different colors that way. What I think is funny is what you said about people who comment that maybe they've never even canned. I really think they probably consider themselves to be Captain Obvious, because they're like, those don't look the same. Thank you so much, Captain Obvious. That's not what we mean. We mean, when you're looking in your pantry, everything may look fine, but unless you do those tests and you tap. And I want to point out that, I think it was very clever that Monica, in this video, if you go back and watch it on her channel, and she just takes the spoon and she barely taps on the lids. That is a great technique to check, because you will hear the difference. But what you don't want to do is you don't want to go around and push in on that center tab, that little button, because you might get just the slightest little bit of play in it. And you're like, oh, was that down or was that not down? I don't know. I guess it's okay. And here you've got a bad seal, but now you've given yourself a false seal, because now you think it's fine and it's not. Don't push on those tabs when you're checking your cans. A really good thing too is, just pick it up by the lid itself. If it's compromised, that lid's going to pop right off. If you've got a good seal, it's going to stick on the jar. You should be able to pick up any canned jar of food by the lid, and it should stick just fine. Anything else, and your jar is compromised. And if you've watched other channels, if you've watched our channels, if you belong to canning groups, you have to live by the adage of, when in doubt, toss it out. If you think it's been compromised, don't risk your family's health. Don't eat it. Monica was very fortunate that her kids were up on what's smelling funky in their house. Like I said, when you got a bunch of boys, you're constantly surrounded by funk. They know the difference in their funk, and they knew something was wrong in Mama's pantry. Monica.
Sorry, my mic doesn't want to unmute now all of a sudden here. So so that's the thing. I think the main part of the video was don't trust the naked eye, because the naked eye will not always give you the answers. And it's super important because right after this, I got a batch of pickled jalapenos that I had pulled out from the top shelf. And my pickled jalapenos actually had, out of a case of 12, they had been done, they were probably about 5 years old. And that was actually when I first started canning, very actively canning my own homegrown foods. And they're out of a case of 12 of my pickled jalapenos. I had 4 of them with seals that were no good. And when I say no good, I mean, the dome was not popped up. I could not see any mold. I could not see discoloration. They looked identical to the other jars. The only way that I knew they were different was not even the tapping. I didn't do a tap test on those. What I did was I pulled the jars down and I looked, and I actually took my finger and ran them along the top of the lid, and I moved them, and they just slid right off. Instead of picking them up, because it was so liquidy, I was afraid to pick them up, thinking that if they dropped down, I was going to have a mess. So I just basically took my finger and ran it across the top of that lid, and I watched 3 of those lids pop right off with no trouble. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is why you can't, again, trust the naked eye. And it's hilarious because I had comments like on that video when I said to the naked eye, these 2 jars look exactly the same. Comments like, even Stevie Wonder could tell those 2 jars didn't look the same. That was so fantastic. Like, I laughed so hard. I told the guy, I said, I'm just going to tell
bring
you,
a blind man into it.
I was no good. I told him, you win comment of the day. I laughed out loud. I chuckled so hard. Another one said, I don't know about you, but this woman lives in a world that only Dr. Martin Luther King only could have dreamt of living. She truly sees no color. And so I thought, this is fantastic. These people are so creative in their comments. I mean, look, and I did get a couple comments, but in every single comment, I had over 2,000 comments. And I will say that I tried to respond to almost every single one of them. And it was important for me to let them know, I care about what you have to say. If you have questions, I'm here to answer them. And if you don't know, that's great. And if you do know, FYI, this is a recommendation from the National Center of Home Preservation and Food, like canning. This is something that Ball recommends. This is something that the canning people recommend. Take your rings off your jars for storage. It's not just something that your grandmama didn't do or she did do. It's something that actually a lot of people didn't do a long time ago. And so because of that, they're like, well, my grandma's been canning for 35 years and she never did this and I never had one bad jar. You'll probably never get one bad jar because your grandma was awesome. But it's just, the thing is there's so many things that can go wrong. It's just safer to take the rings off. And if you don't like that, that's okay. You do what's best for you and what's best for your family. And I say that on every single video, and I'm always out there saying it. If you don't like the way I'm doing it, that is totally okay, because everybody does things differently and you don't have to be me. Because there's only one me. So I don't want you to be me. Do things the way you're doing it. This is just me recommending to you a safe way to do these things. So, I mean, that's kind of how I did it. And yeah, I got made fun of, and I probably just went viral because of the fact that I was just a silly girl commenting on something silly that I said. But, people had a good time with me. And you know what? It was fun. It was fun while it lasted. So people still comment on it to this day still. So yeah. Cayce, do you have something you want to add to that video comment?
Well, I just wanted to say also, when talking about the rings, because it is important that, especially a lot of newer first-time canners listen to our podcast and watch us on social media, and it is important that a lot changes on a year-to-year basis in the canning world of canning. One, I am just going to push out that since I have switched to 4 Jars Canning. And listen, we're not even sponsored by 4 Jars anymore. We were for season 2. We loved them. They sent us some fabulous, fabulous lids. But I have not had a fault seal or a bad seal since I've switched to 4 Jars. Secondly, with taking your rings off, you need to take your rings off, because one thing that you should get in the habit of when you're putting stuff away is you need to have kind of like a damp water vinegar towel, and you should be wiping that lid and the side of your jars. If you do not put vinegar in your water, pressure canner, steam bath canner, water bath canner, you should put vinegar in there anyways. But just put a nice clean jar away. Yeah. And if your ring is still on there and you're wiping it, you're ruining that ring because it's going to get rusted, and you're not really supposed to use those rusted rings. So you're basically messing up those rings to be able to use going forward, because these rings should be nice, they should be clean, they should be new, no rust to it, no debris. So take it off. Listen, your grandma may have done that, but that was 100 years ago. Monica was nice about what she said with hers. Mine is, we're not in 1900s anymore. Listen to what the rules are for canning. Listen, I'm a rebel canner, but there are certain things that you should abide by when you're canning for the safety of your family. Yeah? And one of those things is that you don't stack your jars, that you take the rings off, and that you're wiping it or using vinegar to clean it. And I know Alicia will agree with me on that point because me and Alicia talk about it all the time. So Lisa, look for you, Lisa. Alicia, unscripted.
I was going to say, let's be real about something. When somebody says, well, my grandma, she's been canning for 60 years and she never had one go bad when she did this. I'm sorry, that's a different generation. If you think that your grandma is going to tell the grandkids about her failures in the kitchen, think again. She kept those things to herself. When she had a failure, she discreetly took care of it. She did not tell her family, oh gosh, I had a failure. We're in a new generation now where it's like, oops, I goofed, and it's okay to talk about it. Where before, okay, maybe your grandma might have discussed it with your mother, but the grandkids weren't privy to stuff like that. I'm sorry. I really think that's the way it was. So all these people who are saying my grandma did it for years, your grandma had failures. She just didn't tell you about them. So, but yeah, you have to remove the rings, clean your jars, put them away nice, and then check them like Monica shows in her video. Just check them every so often so that you don't have your kids coming to you and telling you that there's a funk somewhere. There's nothing worse than a funk in the house and not knowing where it come from.
Especially a food funk. Especially a food funk. That is, for anybody that has had the funk, you know what that defunct
Oh
funk
Lord,
smells
I
like.
got a food funk story to share, but I don't think I'll share it today. But I will tell you, it has to do with family members sticking a bean up their nose and it germinated. You want to talk about a funk?
Oh, well, we always joke with the kids, and we say that
Oh
when
my
they start,
word.
because we have a lot of boys, we always joke and say that whenever they start to have body odor, they joke and they say they smell like a taco shop, and we just laugh about it, and that's what they call it, and so that's what they say it smells like a batch
Now
of
they just
taco
say they
meat.
smell like Mama's pantry.
They smell. So apparently they smell like rotten cumin now. I don't know. But
So
this was so
basically,
bad.
basically,
We're gonna get
Monica is.
letters.
I was about to say Monica is. Well, Monica and Eric are now ruining taco meat for the entire United States. So thank you.
Well,
We
that was
want to
another
thank you,
comment that was a
Monica.
very much, yeah. Well, most people were like, oh, no, she didn't. Why is she? They were like, who cares that she's blind? More importantly, why is she putting meat in her pantry and not her refrigerator? And I was like, and most people were like, put your meat in your freezer, lady, or fridge. And I'm like, okay, FYI, we do this because we have a large family and it's important for us to have food on the ready. And of course, that comment also got rebutted with, well, I hope you don't feed your children canned food all the time. Okay, first of all, I make a 6-pound batch of taco meat canned ground beef. I have ground beef. I take it from my freezer to clear up space in my freezer for more meat to come in the freezer. And then I cook it, I season it, and then I put it in jars so that whenever we want it, we have it. So if I have a teenager that's looking for something to eat during the day and they're like, I have nothing to eat. I don't want a sandwich. I've had sandwiches. I don't want leftovers. I say, you know what? Go look in the pantry. See if there's any taco meat in there. If there's chicken taco meat or beef taco meat, why don't you pull a jar out and make yourself some nachos? Go make yourself some tacos. Bake yourself a burrito, whatever it is. They can make their own meals for themselves, and it makes it so much easier on my life. I don't have 1 or 2 children. I have 7 children living in my house right now, and 2 of those are adults, but I have 5 children under the age of 16. And that means that I am on duty. I am making sure that they're eating and eating properly. And by having meat canned, put away in my pantry, I am ensuring that my kids are getting foods that are healthier and that I'm putting in there. And even, with any meat, but it's important. And so people were super upset that I was canning quote unquote taco meat, or at least putting meat in my pantry. And that was where they're just uneducated and they didn't know. And the more I told them why we do it, I think it was great because I was getting some really good responses. And a lot of people, there were quite a few people that said, wow, thank you for doing this. I appreciate you for saying this and explaining it. Now I know I'm going to subscribe to your channel. And that made me feel good. So even one person said that. I was just like, yes, that's cool. I taught somebody something new.
Even as the resident vegetarian, I'd much rather see your children pull out a can of taco meat that you lovingly prepared and canned and put away for them than having them reach into a pantry to grab a bag of ramen noodles and cook those up on the stove. I mean,
Yep.
there's so much more nutritive value in that canning that you've put up for your kids. So,
Exactly.
I mean, like we said before, the people who commented negatively, they don't understand. They're not educated enough on it, and it's not their reality. So hopefully maybe they'll learn a little bit, because I know you responded kindly to all of them. And so it opens the door for education. Whereas I would probably respond a little bit passive aggressively, but I know that's not in your makeup.
No, both of y'all respond a lot professionally and sweet and politically correct. I'm totally different. Like, first of all, what do y'all think canned tuna is when you make tuna salad? You think that is like a magic little fairy that lives in a jar that magically poops out tuna once you open that jar? Like, get a grip, dude. And most of the time, those people that comment like that have no life. They're lonely. They still live with their mother at 60 years old and basically are eating from their mother's scraps on the plate right after they make a comment on a YouTube video. So that is just my opinion on when people talk about canned meat, because canned meat is stuff that people have been doing not just recently because of the homesteading thing being so popular, but for centuries before us, y'all. Alicia?
I'd rather have canned taco meat than salt pork or some dried beef that my grandma had put up. But I did want to say, when you say canned tuna, is it when it's chicken of the sea, is that chicken or tuna?
I think it's a mixture. I think it's a mixture to be. Just kidding. No, because we're gonna get those comments on here like,
Yeah.
oh God,
Address your letters
Alicia
to
and Cayce
Ormsby
are
Farms.
stupid.
That is straight tuna, okay? We eat tuna fish. We eat chicken of the sea, okay? It's some
We
good
do
stuff.
too. It's
I ain't
good
judging
stuff,
no
and
chicken of the sea.
to kind of
I'm
like
going to throw
move
out
in.
there. I'm going to throw out there, though, for people who are listening, because we're all joking and making fun. I am going to say, as the resident vegetarian, if you don't like tuna, if you decide not to eat tuna, you can smash up some chickpeas, aka garbanzo beans, and make a lovely tuna salad. The texture is the same. The taste is the same. It is just like having tuna salad. And you can do it for chicken salad too. Garbanzo beans are amazing as a substitute. So there's that. Maybe you don't want to put canned meat in your pantry, but you want to have something available. Next time you go to the store, grab a whole bunch of garbanzo beans. Use those. They work great. Okay, jumping down off of my vegetarian soapbox.
Well, no, I think that's a good thing to know. I mean, because we're talking about one thing that our podcast is about is preparing your homestead, and we talk about all these different tips and tricks. We talk about preparing your home. So we talk about how to get your garden prepared for the season, how to get your fall garden, but we always talk about preparing your pantry. And as we're talking about Monica's viral video that made her a worldwide phenomenon and a multi-millionaire from the video of taco meat,
No.
um,
Yeah, we made like $15 maybe. I think we actually maxed out at $10 for that video, Casey, just so you know.
I
$10.
just want to say that's
Hey, that's
retirement.
$10 you didn't have before.
Well,
That's
I'm saying
$10 I
that's
didn't have before. And as a matter of fact, I still don't have that money yet because I still haven't figured out how to get my AdSense working. So that's another story for another
well.
day.
You can get a lot of tacos on Taco Tuesday for $10.
True.
I hear $10 and I think retirement. So let's just push that. But going from canning to moving over to the 46,000 views that Alicia got on bulk flour, both videos get some fabulous comments, and I've read a couple of them on Alicia's. I'm going to let Alicia chime in, but I'm first going to talk to Monica since we talked to Alicia first about Monica's viral video. Um, Monica, everybody knows that we've been here on 4 seasons now. You have a large family. Do you make your breads for your family? Like, do you make the bread products that you and your family eat throughout the year, or is it a mix, or how do you do it at Bland's Promised Land Ranch?
Okay, so for us, we really go by seasons of life. Right now, I don't have any toddlers. I don't have any small children. There was a season in our, in the season in my life as a mom where I did make all of our own breads. I was trying to completely remove dairy from our household. There was a few children with some dairy issues. And so I wanted to be in control of that. And so by doing that, I started making my own bread because I don't know if you know this, but there is dairy in bread. In a lot of store-bought breads, there's dairy hidden in there. In some of the terms, it doesn't say it's milk products. It's different terms. But one of the things I started doing was making my own bread. I really enjoy making different types of bread. I always have flour on hand, and I do like making fun breads like zucchini bread this time of year. The kids love different muffins. I like making those types of things for the kids. But in the season of life that I'm in right now, I'm not making my own bread currently when it comes to sandwich breads. The kids will eat sandwiches or they'll eat, I call them wraps just because I buy the soft flour tortillas for the kids from Costco. Right now, cost wise, that is what is important to me. It costs me very little to purchase a loaf of bread versus my time that I don't have to put into making my bread right now. You are like the bread king, and I know you're making tons of bread over there, Cayce, and you're even putting it out at farmers markets and things like that. But a loaf of bread that I make my family, when I make a hot loaf of bread, it is gone in 15 minutes. I would have to stand and be in front of my oven in Texas heat for hours to make enough bread for our family. And currently, because all my kids are getting older, they eat more. The amount of bread that they would consume if I made it homemade is far more than if I store bought it, because I can buy 4 loaves of bread here and it's going to last me 2 weeks almost, because the kids are like, yeah, it's store bought bread. I'm not going to eat a sandwich today. Whereas if I made it, they would eat a lot more of it, and I would spend so much more time in the kitchen. So for us right now, this season that we're in, I'm not making a lot of my homemade bread that I would normally make, but I have in the past, and it definitely comes in waves. I think that's with a lot of things in life. You have to remember that your time is very valuable as well. And we want to save money, and we definitely want to be frugal. But for us right now, the little bit of cost it takes to purchase bread at the Walmart or the local grocery store is worth it for me, knowing that it's saving my time and the energy that I'm spending in front of a hot stove in the Texas 101-degree day, because I try not to turn that stove on if I can help it. So yeah, flour. But flour is one of the things I always have on hand, and I try to keep in bulk, and I keep trying to find new ways to store it. And I thought Alicia's video for storing flour was phenomenal. And it was one of the first ones I had ever seen that describes putting flour up the way she did. So I think that was such an awesome thing, because it's important to have those things on hand, because when things hit the fan, If you can't go to the store and buy bread, you better know how to make it.
Absolutely. And that's kind of how I came about that. And I'd actually started putting my flour up like that before all of the craziness that hit us in 2020. Um, but I've gotten a lot of feedback on that video, both positive and negative. I've gotten much more positive on it. I've had a few negatives, and I think the negatives come down to lifestyle choices and, again, just having the knowledge of how things work in the real world, and personal preference. So to just back up on it a little bit, I am in the habit of freezing my flour, and I've been that way for a long time, whether it's my flour or my cornmeal, excuse me, or anything like that, because here's where it comes down to personal preference and things, from your past. I cannot tell you how many times growing up as a child, my mother would open a bag of flour or my mother would open a bag of cornmeal and there'd be dead bugs in it. And for those who don't know me very well, and maybe you haven't followed on my channel or heard some of my stories, I grew up very poor and nothing was ever wasted in our house. So when my mother would open up a bag of cornmeal and it had the bug skeletons in it, she'd sift it. She'd sift out all the dead bugs, and then she would still make cornbread. And that's hard. That's a hard nut to swallow when you're a kid, but you're hungry enough, you do it. But you vow that you're never going to have that for your kids. So I always try to remove my product, stick it in the freezer, and then stick it in something else to keep it clean and secure. And a lot of people say you don't need to do that anymore. And that's fine. If you don't want to freeze your dried good like that to kill off the eggs, and any possible infestation. Because I tell you what, once you bring in one box that has the eggs in it, they're going to go to the other boxes of your food. And then you have an infestation and you don't see it. You don't see it until you open the box of cornmeal mix. There's nothing worse than opening that little box of Jiffy and it's got little dead bugs in it. So my video where I'm preserving my flour, I bundle up my flour and then I put it in the freezer. And that just kills off any opportunity for anything that was in that packaging. And I had so many people saying, you don't need to do that. And I get it. Maybe you don't need to do it. I do. And if somebody has a history like I have, or if they don't want to risk bugs, I know that, you can't see it while we're talking, but Monica's shaking her head. She knows what I'm talking about. That's why I freeze it. But, one of the other negatives I had, I think really comes down to just common sense. I've had some people really unleash on me and say, thanks, I just wasted 25 pounds of flour. And it's like, what are you talking about? Well, I froze it, like you said, I put it in my bundles and then I took it out and my bundles got all wet. Well, it's common sense. You don't take something out of the freezer to put on the counter on a day when there's high humidity. It's just like if you're going to have a glass of iced tea, that glass is going to sweat. You take the bundles out of the freezer, they're going to sweat on a high humid day. Chances are you're not going to have mold in your flour anyways, but you have to have the common sense. And I say it in the video. It's like, go back to this point in the video and I tell you this. And so I've thought about redoing the video just so I can reiterate on some of the finer points. But I really do like having the bundles. I do my bundles in 3 cups bundles and I roll them up, I freeze them, then I take them out and I put them in some really nice storage containers with gamma lids. I always add bay leaves to my buckets so that really, it's that added benefit of really trying to keep any bugs out. I've not had any bug issues here, but I like that when I'm getting low on I have a working pantry and then a long-term storage pantry. When my working pantry flour bundles get low, I can just open my next bucket and I've got my bundles of flour so that I can bake my bread and everything's already pre-measured. And I really like that. And the other added benefit is if I've got those bundles put away, and they'll last years. As long as you've got them in a place where they're not going to be subjected to high heat or high humidity, and you've got them put away properly, they're going to last. And as long as it's a white bleached flour, I wouldn't recommend putting the flour away that, whole wheat or a wheat blend, that's going to have the oils and that's going to turn rancid. So you can't do this with the wheat flours. But if we were in a bad situation and my kids or my neighbors or anything comes around, I've got something to barter with. I can barter the ingredients to bake a loaf of bread in exchange for maybe a gallon of milk from the neighbor that has a cow. Monica?
I think one of the things that's important too is that you show one way to be able to preserve your flour for long term. There are a lot of people that, for instance, I put my flour into the Mylar bags. I do that and I put them together and I count out. Usually I do a 5-pound bag, and I do it in a 5-pound bag because I buy a big 25-pound bag from Costco and I separate it into 5-pound bags. And if I do that, then I know they're going to have that much that fills up my container that I keep in my working pantry. Like you said, I have a pantry that I constantly work from. I also have a big gamma bucket that I have loose flour in that I started with originally. I do the same type of thing, but you're doing one way. Maybe there's a person that doesn't have the resources to buy the Mylar bags. Maybe there's a person that doesn't have the resources to buy the gamma buckets or the buckets from whatever with the gamma lids and all the stuff. This is a really inexpensive way to do it, to store it and to keep it a little longer term. I don't have room in my freezer to keep it there long term. But it doesn't mean that Mary doesn't up the street. And you're using what? What did you use in your video to originally take? So you bought a bag of flour and you separate it into 3 cups and you put it into they were just
bags.
Sandwich bags, right?
Yep.
So they're plastic sandwich bags.
I use the little they're white, but sometimes I use white, sometimes I use like the sandwich bags, like when you brown bag lunch.
The paper bag. So it wasn't a plastic bag. It was a paper bag. So that's what I thought. It was a brown paper bag. And so, but you're using white, but you can use a paper bag and that's what you're using. And these are inexpensive. You can get these at the Dollar Tree. Mm-hmm. Okay. You can get a pack of them. So this is just a one way that's inexpensive, and it's an inexpensive way for you to be able to make what you have last longer. And you may not think you have to put it in the freezer. Fine, then don't. But it's a great way to store it, to keep it long term. And there's nothing worse than, like she said, to open up a bag of something you think you're going to use. I have done it many times where I'm like, hey guys, I planned out my stuff and I'm like, hey guys, go get me a thing. Go get me a little box of Jiffy. I need 3 of those Jiffy. We run by 2s and 3s around here. We don't ever do just one, but we get 3 boxes of the Jiffy. And it's $1. It was $1 at the Walmart before, way back when. Now it's probably like $1.50, but you go get your little box of the Washington corn muffin mix or the Jiffy corn muffin mix, and you rip that thing open thinking you're going to have some delicious corn muffins, and you see bugs in there.
And they're skeletons. They're always those little dead skeletons.
Yeah. So, and that's the worst part. And you're like, and that's a letdown. And it's frustrating. It makes you angry. And then you feel like, wow, you've really wasted that time. First of all, you wasted time putting into what you were going to make for dinner. And that's discouraging, especially when you're trying to feed small people. And 2, you've wasted money. And it may have only been $1 or $1.50, but $1.50 adds up, especially when you're buying 3 or 4 boxes because you're storing it.
Yeah, especially if one box is contaminated and it feeds over into the next box and into the next box, into the next box.
Yeah.
And you were mentioning about the freezer space. That's just it. You could buy a 10-pound bag of flour. Yeah, you're not going to have room to put that in your freezer, but you put them in the bundles, and they're just little 3-cup bundles or 4-cup bundles or whatever you're going to need for your recipe. You could put those into those little nooks and crannies in your freezer, freeze them for 3 days, take them out, let them fully acclimate at room temperature on a non-humid day, and then put them away in either a Tupperware container or in your 5-gallon bucket with the gamma lid, whatever. You don't have to do mass quantities, but you can do enough where at least your food stays fresh and bug-free and easily accessible and easy to just like pop out that bundle and bake a loaf of bread without having to do a bunch of measuring and such.
Yeah.
And, like I said, I got some funny comments on there. I got some harsh ones, but for the most part, people were appreciative that, I didn't know I could do this and I've just done it. And thank you so much. And it works out really, really great. So it's like yours. You run the gambit, and I tried to respond as positively as I could to everybody, but everybody's got an opinion, just like a belly button. Everybody's got one. But I appreciate all of the opinions.
Some people's are just dipper than others, so deeper belly buttons means the nastier comment. Or not. Well,
or
I'll
not.
just say that.
But that's been a good video. It was fun. And I think that the important thing about all of our videos on all three of our channels is it's real. I mean, Monica, I know because I know you. I know you've got your pantry right there, and I know you've got your things in there that you can for your family. And things like this happen, and you share it because it's real. And I use my bundles. I freeze that flour. I use those bundles. I bake my bread, and it's real.
Yeah.
I'm not just trying to stage something in the hopes that I'll get some clicks or likes or feedback. It's really what I do here on my little farm. And I think that's what's great about all of us is we've got things that we do. It's just because this is the life that we live now. We want to share the good and the bad. We want to share the successes and the failures so that everybody can learn from them. So, whether it's a seal that pops on one of your canned goods of taco meat, or whether it's the fact that I was a stinker and pulled out a bundle of flour on a really humid day and now I subjected something to mold. It's not going to happen, but it just takes a little common sense. Somebody say something.
And I was just going to say that common sense sometimes it seems like is lacking in some of the commentors on our videos is the lack of common sense. Because at the end of the day, you're putting stuff away for your homestead, for your family, and that's the most important part. If you don't want to do it the way that we do it on our videos or the way that we show, listen, it's not a bad thing. We're not saying that we're God and we're here to tell you this is the only way you can do anything to save it for your homestead. And on that note, from talking to Alicia's, one, I don't have a viral video like Monica and Alicia, but I get a question that I am asked all the time. And I wanted to bring it up to y'all because I'm sure that y'all are asked the same question. One thing that I usually say in my videos is I will say, oh, I'm trying to do 85% of what we eat. I'm trying to grow, or I'm trying to raise, or I'm trying to stock 85% of what we eat to be something that I preserved. And a lot of the questions that I get are, Cayce, how can you even like get that number? How do you know what percentage of what you grow is what you're eating? So I wanted to ask you two ladies, have y'all gotten that question before? I get it all the time, like literally daily. I got it a couple times today. But what about y'all? Have y'all ever gotten that question? Do y'all even talk about that on your videos about the percentage of what you eat? Monica?
So I talk about, can you hear me? Okay, there it is. So I know that I've said it on my videos before, and we say it on our live. I don't do all the math and all the books like you do, Cayce. Like, you're good with all that, like, spreadsheet documentation. I am not that organized mentally or physically at all. But one of the things we try to do, and one of the things we do discuss often, is that my goal is to not shop for any of our meat. And once I'm to that point where I don't have to shop for our meat, then I want to start crossing off vegetables or breads or things that I'm buying at the store. I want to see my grocery bill at the Walmart or the Brookshires or whatever I'm doing, wherever I'm going, my local places. I want to see my Costco bill go down. Now it's hard because everything seems to be going up, but I want to see my normal cost that I'm spending in the grocery stores to go down. And that's how I know that that's how I know that I'm producing more of what we consume. And that's important for me. I have not bought beef at the store in over 4 years. We have been growing our own beef and producing and providing all of our own beef on the farm here for 4 years now. That was a huge goal for us, and we did that. Then one of the things we've been doing in the past year and a half is we have provided the meals for the meat for our Thanksgiving and our Easter feast, Easter, Christmas, and Thanksgiving, the three big meals that we have with our family, where we have my extended family here, and we provide all the meat for those meals. The end goal for me, is my mind works, is that I want to be able to provide one of those complete meals from our farm. That would be a huge accomplishment here at the ranch, is if we were able to provide all of the ingredients, all of the things, all of the main courses and the sides from the farm. We provide the meat and the green beans every year now. All the deviled eggs that we eat at the farm are, at the holidays, are from ours. So we are doing little bits at a time. Potatoes are next on my list, and then sweet potatoes, because that's something that I don't grow here, our potatoes and sweet potatoes yet, but that's something I want to add to, so that I know that when we have our sweet potato casserole that my mother-in-law makes and our mashed potatoes, that it's coming from our farm. So those are the ways that I feel like we're supporting ourselves and we're able to produce those things if we can. So it's not that we're doing 85% or 50% or whatever. I know that 100% of my meat, minus the chicken, because I do buy store-bought chicken right now, comes from our farm. When it comes to pork, beef, turkey, all of that, most of our meat, I would say at least 90% of our meat that we eat on this farm, we eat at this house, comes from our farm. And that is a huge accomplishment for us. So as soon as I get the hang of the chicken thing, I will. But we just have to raise too many chickens to feed our family all the amount of chicken that we like, because we do.
I
like
want to
chicken.
point out that 90% includes the taco meat.
It does include,
regardless of its color,
our canned taco meat. Yes. But Cayce, that's kind of the way I do it. So is that answer your question a little bit as to,
It does.
What you're looking for?
And
Okay.
Well, I think you also pointed out something really important. And, I did a video on how we here at Ormsby Farm figure out our percentage. But what you said about kind of checking off things, like focusing on, okay, we're going to focus on Thanksgiving or Christmas or Easter, and let's kind of check off the stuff as we go through it, is a way that I talked about in my video. That once you've gotten your menu, in the video I talked about doing a random weekly menu of your breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and marking it either H for homegrown or S for store-bought. And then you look back and you said, okay, what are my S's that I could grow on my homestead? I may not do it now, and that's fine, but what can I do going forward? Monica was talking about her potatoes and sweet potatoes. I'm right behind you, girl, because I want to grow potatoes, because we love taters here at Ormsby Farm, but we do not successfully grow them here as of now. Another thing that I said on my video was, we may not grow it on our homestead, but I have to shout out the Bland's beef, because we had the true privilege and honor to host the Bland's at our house and got some beef. And that beef was like, what do they say at KFC? Finger licking good. KFC, chicken, Bland's beef, different, but you know what I mean. It was finger licking good. It was delicious. And it just has a different taste. Homegrown. Alicia, what? Plate licking good. Oh, somebody better like patent that now. Alicia, what do you think about the percentage and the homegrown stuff?
I think you bring up something that leads me in a different direction that I think is really important for our viewers, our listeners, the people who are on our Facebook pages, and those that follow us. We get all the time comments on our Facebook page where they say, I don't have a very big homesteader or a very big homestead, and I'm not a very big homesteader, and I live here, or I do this. This is where all of us have different definitions of what their homestead is and what they do on their homestead. So for me to say that 85% is an attainable goal, I'm going to come right out and say it's not attainable for me, because I am the vegetarian in the group, which means we don't raise meat here on our farm. I don't want to trump Monica, but I can honestly say for myself, I haven't bought beef in 12 years. Because I haven't eaten it for 12 years. Papa Jim gets meat, and we we vacuum seal it and put it in the freezer, and then I mark on it. I put Carol Baskin's husband. That's what I write on the outside of the package. But so, I mean, he'll get meat every once in a while, but
That's
I don't. But I do have plant-based meat dishes. So I
Oh
do
my
purchase
word.
in bulk. What? Yeah, I'll
I
get the
just
letters
had
on that one. Um,
woo.
I really did. I really did do that. I get the textured TVP, texturized vegetable protein. I get the fakey meat. I get the plant-based meat, not the new meat that everybody's talking about right now that's going to be grown in labs. I don't get that. I get the freeze-dried, dehydrated vegetable protein, and that's what I make my taco meat out of. I have stew meat, I have chicken, I have taco meat, I have ham bits. That's what I do. So for my homestead, even though I dibble and dabble a little bit in my garden, and I have a very select few vegetables that I grow in the garden because I'm a very picky vegetarian. Do not throw an eggplant my way. And then I have the eggs from my chickens, which I've just, Monica mentioned deviled eggs. I'm very pleased that I made deviled eggs last year. The eggs were from my chickens. The mayonnaise I made from a turkey egg, even though the olive oil was not something I grew here on the farm. But then the relish was something that I made from my, pickle geddon that happened 2 years ago when I had so many pickles I didn't know what to do with. So those deviled eggs were like 98% me
such a
right
good
here on this
feeling.
farm.
Such
It's
a
a
good
good
feeling.
feeling.
Yeah.
It's a great feeling. But for me, with my homestead, just like so many people in our groups that follow us say, I'm really not a big homesteader. You don't have to be a homesteader, and you don't have to be a big homesteader. You don't have to homestead the way Monica does, the way Cayce does, the way I do. You have to homestead what's best for you. So Monica's goal is to have this whole meal produced by her farm. Cayce's got the same goal. My goal has always been to have a very well established and organized long-term pantry for my farm in the event that there is something that happens that keeps me from making it to the store. So, and I learned that when we first moved here because we get blizzards where I can't even get off the farm for 8 days. So that's what I do. I'm looking for that long term. I'm never going to grow my own coffee. And good Lord, help us if I don't have coffee in the morning. So I have to have coffee. I know I'm going to buy that at the store. I'm not going to be growing my own olives. I'm not going to be growing my own bananas. There are things I have to get at the store. But the things that I do get, the things that I can and put away in my pantry, the things that I can stockpile in my pantry in the event that something big comes down, that's my goal, is for that long-term survival mode in the event of a natural disaster or a tornado, or we don't have power for 2 or 3 weeks. We had that big derecho that went through here a few years ago. And, my sister was without power for days and she didn't even have anything to cook on. She didn't have a manual can opener to open the cans of the canned food that she had. So I'm more into prepping that way. Cayce, what were you going to say about this?
I was just going to say that you said it beautifully, but I wanted to just let you know that my true goal is to have a cover spread of Farmers Weekly in a calendar. So when you were talking about providing food, I'd actually like to have a partially um, overall cover shoot on a Farmers Weekly. But we all have our goals.
I think that's a wonderful goal. You both have wonderful goals. And
I
that's
love
what's so
that.
neat.
That
it
is like bougie farmer right there. He started it way and he's going to end that way.
Yep.
I am going to stick to the bougie, to the bouge.
Yeah. You may shower less, but you're still bougie.
A lot less.
He got that funky bouge going on.
When you
I
become a
kind of.
farmer, you realize that priorities isn't showering every second of the day and making sure you're fresh before you go put your coveralls on and go out there to feed the chickens. No, your priority is
It's
feeding the
so
chickens.
true.
You shower when you can, even if it's 1 a.m.
It is so true. I aim to smell like Monica's taco meat sometime from her viral video. That is a goal.
That was
Send letters
not
to Ormsby Farms.
that was not a good taco shop. smell, okay? That was deodorant could not handle that mess, okay? That was not a teenage boy smell. That was a true rancid meat smell, okay?
There's nothing worse than decomposing meat. Oh my
That is true.
gosh.
It
That's very
sends
true.
anybody into
Oh,
vegetarianism.
Is
it's
that even a
true.
word?
I don't think it
Vegetarianism.
is. I don't think it
I
is,
think
but
I think this, you know what, though, honestly, this has been such a great thing because I love talking about these videos. I like talking about what we do on our channels. I like sharing what we've done with everyone out there too, because I think that, with the podcast, we've been able to share all these, different things that we've talked to other people about and some of the things that we do bring our own stories into it, but it's been really fun to be able to chat about our videos that we've put on our channels because, this isn't just a video that I did. It was definitely something that Eric did with me. He's the one that shot that video. And, we also have that calf video that was really popular too that he did. And it's always fun to see these videos and to see people be touched by the videos that we do, whether it's just them making fun of us or them actually learning something from us. But I think that video that you have, Cayce, that you were talking about, I don't think it's necessarily been a viral video, but I think it's an amazing video. And if you guys haven't checked that video out over at Ormsby Farms, you need to go see it. It's a really good video. You just put it out recently. What was the name of that one, Cayce? Do you remember?
actually, I'm drawing a blank now, but I think it was like, what percentage do you eat? Or, um, of course, as I'm shooting the podcast to all our listeners, I have my phone out and I'm pulling it. I'm like, oh my gosh, how did I not remember that?
That's what it is.
Um,
Yep. What percentage do you eat homegrown? It was the meal planner download.
yes,
Yeah, it's such a good video and it is
thank
worth
you.
watching and taking a look and even saving to your playlist because it's a good video showing how you can do it. One way that somebody does that. So I think that's amazing. And it's been such a fun time talking about all these things today.
Right. And, I just wanted to point out, since Cayce brought it up about the whole 85% thing, I was not, this is not a jab, it's just a fact. I was not invited to participate in the February, what was it? What was that collaboration? $50 February.
Mhm.
The $50 February. And I commented on it. I said, hey, I wasn't part of the collab, but this is what happened for me. And it was in February. My mother-in-law was very, very ill. So my husband and my brother-in-law flew off to California to go spend a couple weeks out there in California with their mother. So I was here at the farm by myself and I did not venture off the farm very much. But I lived off of everything I had in my pantry the entire month. I only purchased one item for the entire month of February, and that was some coffee creamer. Everything else was canned, dehydrated, vacuum sealed, stored away, organized in my pantry. Everything from the coffee to the toilet paper to my water that because we have well water, I run it through my Berkey or we have another filtration system. Everything was taken care of. So I know without a doubt, if something major happens and we are cut off from society for an extended period of time, even without power, I am prepared because I have my solar oven. I have my outdoor cook area. I have an outdoor kitchen. I have everything I need. And that was my goal, was if I was cut off from the outside world, how long can I make it? And we just recently went through a job change with my husband. And it was the first time in a long time that I said, you know what? We're okay. It's okay. I have everything we need here to last us at least a year. So you take your time until you find the correct position where you want to change jobs, and we're going to be absolutely fine. We have everything we need. Okay.
I love
So
that.
that's my goal. So, we're coming up here at the end of our time. And I just really would like to thank everybody for joining us. And I want to encourage you, go over to Ormsby Farms, check out his videos. Let's see if we can get one of his videos to go viral. He's got some great content out there. Head on over to Bland's Promised Lands Ranch. She's got a lot of great stuff. Her and her husband, Eric, and their entire family, they have a lot of great stuff on their place where they're at. And she shares a lot of great information with you. And hey, if you want to learn something about what I put out on my channel, anything from reading classic books, teaching you how to crochet, put away some flour and make some really funky husband soup. No, it's not funky. My soup didn't stink like Monica's taco meat funk, but I did make some really fun husband soup, and there's a lot of innuendo in that video. Let me just say I made it in my Instant Pot, and Instant Pot said, that's a really great video, but we can't play it on our channel. They said, we really like it. It's really funny, but we can't. So go check that one out because that one's fun. I'd love to see that one go viral. But thank you so much for joining us here on Round the Hay Bale. And Monica is signaling to me from across the studio. I'm missing something. What am I missing, Monica?
You did great. No, I was just saying, don't forget to remind everybody to tune in tomorrow on our Facebook Live, because we usually have a Facebook Live and our Homesteading 101 page. Go to the Beginner's Homesteading Guide on Facebook and check out. We're going to do a live stream there. We do that on Tuesdays after our podcast comes out on Mondays. And we're going to be live there discussing topics like this and all the other things. And there's lots of people in there, and we'd love to have you join us.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Until we see you next time, take care of yourself. And we're going to sign on out with a hey, y'all, hey. Bye-bye.